what does it mean to believe? That is an issue that the boy Jordan Peterson seems to be at the forefront of. It's one of the most important things he's dealing with. There's a really interesting conversation he had with Alex O'Connor, the cosmic skeptic. I believe his name is Alex O'Connor. I thought it was pretty good. Not as cumbersome as his first conversation with Sam Harris on truth, but it's not about Jordan Peterson. I think he's right there, actually, at the forefront of that. Not necessarily about all his other stuff, but and I like a lot of Jordan Peterson's other stuff, but we're not getting into that. But what does it mean to believe? And specifically, they're talking about Jesus. Jesus is one of the figures, he's the main figure in the world. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. I don't care if you disagree. What year is it? 2024. 2024 years since what? At the very least, you have to ask yourself, why is the calendar named after dude? Why is the calendar named after Jesus' birthday? It's not named after his birthday, but why is that how we measure time since Jesus? So I call myself a Christian in many instances. In many situations, if I'm around Christians, they just assume I'm a Christian, and I'm okay with that because I don't necessarily want to get into the whole what does it mean to believe conversation because it's actually very deep and difficult. But I had a religious experience a few years ago, and I also heard a summary of a guy on a podcast talking about what some men have experienced, and it fit me to a T. Like, I grew up religious, Christian, departed from that because I thought it was lame, and I was right. Most of Christianity is quite lame. Christian culture in America now, since I've been born, 1990, has been lame. I was right. And so I left that. I ended up in nihilism, not like, ooh, I'm a nihilist. Like, I just found myself thinking life was pointless and acting like it, and it sucked. And so, actually, Jordan Peterson's videos were really helpful for me getting back on track, getting my life together. Actually, played a pivotal role, I believe. And I think he's just very good at explaining things and articulating. He's a great speaker. Um, but then I checked back into Christianity at that point, and I was just like, nah, this is not the way, or church rather. I thought everything was pretty lame. And but anyway, I had the experience of just kind of coming back to like faith through understanding evil. For the past few years, I just realized I was like, there's evil. Like there's stuff going on that I think is evil. Like, I don't know how else to put it. And it was actually right after I voiced that for the first time on a hunting trip with some friends that I had the religious experience. It was stuff I'd been thinking, but I never really voiced it. And when I said it out loud, like, I think that this stuff going on, certain things that are going on in society, I was like, I think this stuff is evil. And as I said that, there was part of me that was like, whoa, like, do I really believe that? And I'm like, yeah. Like, there's no better way to describe it. And it was seriously only a few minutes afterwards I had this religious experience. And not to go deeply into that, but it lined up directly with the cover of this version or this publication. I think it was Penguin House, published The Varieties of Religious Experience, The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. And right on the cover, it was like this vortex open in the sky. And like, I basically experienced something just like that. And I had the book, but I'd never read it. After religious experience, I read it, and there's a lot of anecdotes in there, a lot of personal accounts that aligned so much with what I'd experienced that it was like too heavy to read even a few days after my experience. But basically, I felt like I had been really trying to understand life, what was going on, why my actions matter in the grand scheme of things. I was trying to understand like what was going on and how things worked, like at a very deep level. Like I just was really trying to work out a way out of nihilism and find something I could really grab onto. And I felt like I was the um, meaning of life and answers were being downloaded into me, like, and it was intense. The level of intensity was rivaling that of like some of the most powerful psychedelic experiences I've ever had. And I've had some pretty powerful psychedelic experiences, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't necessarily like a psychedelic experience, but it was so foreign and so um, it was so powerful that it was like that. And it was, I would say it was more, it was realer than real. Like it was realer than real life. This experience I had, which is very bizarre. And I just felt like I was getting downloaded all the answers. Then it got to a point I was like, this is too heavy. I can't handle it. Please stop. And then it was if I felt, or I heard in my mind like a voice being like, yeah, you're right. Like you don't need to understand all these things. This is above your pay grade. You don't need to worry about all that's going on. Like you can't handle it. Like you're not ready. Just focus on what you need to do. Just focus on your life, your actions, your words. That's all you need to do. You know, follow your conscience, whatever. Um, it was really just like, just do what you need to do and say what you need to say, and that's all you need to worry about. Adios. And then like came back down to reality. And I felt like I just had this very much deeper understanding of God and Jesus. Not necessarily, but it wasn't like necessarily like aligned with like Christian culture per se. Like I don't feel like I experienced um, like I didn't see a vision of Jesus, but I saw like a great white light that seemed to be emanating the experience that I had, that was felt like um, if I continued to experience it, it was going to, like I was going to explode or something, cease to exist. It was very um, it was pretty wild. And I just feel like ever since then I haven't I honestly have not really spent any time like trying to like, oh well, what's going on, what's the, and you know, what's the point, what's the meaning, blah blah blah. Because and also a lot of it, I mean, I genuinely wanted to know, which is why I think I had that experience, because there's a verse that says, you will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. I think that's what happened to me, because I really had been trying to understand everything that had been going on truly, and I was acting like it. And I feel like that's the same thing as seeking God, ultimately, trying to understand truth or trying to discover truth. And so ever since then, I really haven't spent any time like with this wonder, with this pondering, um, and needing to figure out and understand anything. And also wrapped up in that was a lot of like um, excuses and avoiding taking responsibility, because I would like do stuff where I know I really shouldn't be doing it. Like I was starting to feel a lot of guilt by just having like casual relations with women that I had no intention of being in serious relationships with. I started to feel just like guilty about that. Like, but I was just like, what am I supposed to do? Be a monk? I was like, I don't want to be a monk. I wasn't about to get married. I am married now. Um, and but because I didn't have this full explanation of what was going on, um, like I didn't have this full moral structure that I could really hold on to or whatever, that so I was able to continue just kind of like wallowing around until I had this experience. I met my wife, my now wife, basically right after that. And I just really feel like I've been more in tune with the Holy Spirit, my intuition, or what have you. And I feel like that is kind of, that is ultimately like the point, and it's difficult to really put into words, but like Muyatu Musashi, whatever he said, whatever his name is, he who knows the path broadly will see it in all things. There's another verse in Isaiah that I don't I don't um, I don't even remember. I can't even paraphrase it, but the gist of it, from the way I said it, was about following your conscience, and I feel like that's really all that you can do, and that doesn't negate like taking advice from people that are older than you and more experienced. I think that's smart. You should do that. I think you have to develop your conscience through experience and teachings, but but I ultimately believe that that is what you're supposed to do. And I feel like there's a lot of philosophizing and trying to understand and really have this articulate theological structure, and that's what how people come to faith. And I do think there's utility in that, but I also think you can get lost in that, and then you're lost to the point where you're missing the whole thing, where you're having this, you know, you've developed this very intricate understanding, very deep understanding, and very detailed theology based on truth, interpreting this and that, and having an explanation for every single avenue of questioning. I think there's you're missing the point, because ultimately it's a lived experience, and like you could say you get everything get everything figured out, but then if you deviate from the path, if you mess up by your own standard, then it's like, what's the point? The lived life, the trying to do the right thing, and just even just sometimes what if it's just biting your tongue or saying I'm sorry. Like, you don't necessarily have to have an entire framework for that if you can just follow God, follow your intuition. I don't know if that makes sense.